Hey y'all, what's up? This is Chris from Blackstone Cherry, and you're watching the Helix Hour with Eric Broadbent.
Welcome to the Helix Hour, brought to you in part by Design39 Media. Visit design39media.com for all your website, photography, and video production needs. Microphones for the Helix Hour are provided by Rode Microphones. Now, let's talk some Helix. Hey everyone, happy Sunday to you all. Welcome to the Helix Hour at a special time, special presentation. We are live, which wrapping up our final show, season 2, final episode, and the last show of 2018. It's a pleasure to be here. I want to wish a belated Merry Christmas to everyone and an early Happy New Year. And we thought, as I described on social media today, I thought we would kick 2018 right square in the pants by bringing in Monuments guitarist John Browne. How you doing, John?
I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic. What a great way to wrap up 2018. You had a live stream.
Thank you very much for having me on the show.
Oh, it's a pleasure. You had a live stream just a few minutes ago. What were you? You were a Twitch streamer, is that what you were saying?
Yeah, so recently I just started doing every Sunday going on Twitch because I have my own group on Facebook. It's like the Guitar Players Lounge, and it's basically full of people that have ever bought anything to do with Monuments, my old bands either. They can come into this group and we just talk about guitar. But I thought maybe we'll add some games in there as well, just to sort of break up the seriousness.
Yeah, that's kind of everyone can decompress a little bit.
Well, actually, Rocket League doesn't really decompress you.
That's true.
More angry.
That's true. I told my son about it. I said, you're not going to believe this. My guest is a Twitch streamer, and of course, he's 12 years old, right in that age of watching all these gamers and stuff. And he's more excited about that than the fact that you're a Helix user and everything else.
Oh, wow. Amazing. Does he play a lot of computer games himself?
He does, but he gets teased a lot because he has a Macintosh, right? We all have Mac here in the house, and he tells his friends, like, he plays games on Mac, and they ridicule him.
Of course, like PC is the one to have games on, but I mean, Mac's definitely caught up in the last few years.
They're getting there. What he does, though, he dual boots it, so he's got a Windows partition on it, so he can at least get by. But my goal this year is to get him a gaming computer of some sort.
Did he do that at age 12, or did you do that?
We did it together. He knew how to do it, so I kind of guided him. But he's a smart cookie man. That's
insane. I have no idea how to do that.
It's pretty cool. It's awesome. Well, listen, before we get into the show, what we're going to start, I'm going to say hi to everybody over in the chat there. And when we come back, for some of the new viewers, a lot of our viewers are here to see you today, and they know your band very, very well. But there could be some viewers here that don't know the band that well. And maybe you can kind of bring us up to speed about Monuments, when you formed and things like that. But we'll say hi to the crowd first. So over in our great chat here, we have Gene Hartwig. We've got Riley Io Acura, Alec Bourne, Kai Down, JJ's House of Jams, our good friend Frank Rashad at line 6. Nice. Let me see here. Brad Miller is here as well, too. He's asking for some tips on some volume things on Helix. We'll try to help you out throughout the program. Let me see here. So who else we got? Kai Down is here as well. Let me see. Nocturnal Butterfly is my better half here. She runs a very efficient chat. Happy New Year's to everyone, she's saying. Richard Henry, he's over on your side of the globe. Says, hey, I hope you're all doing good. Looking forward to this one. Quentin James is here. Hey, kids. Carlo Santin, my Canadian buddy, and one of our moderators is here, a Helix user. Let me see here. Let me get down to the bottom here. Kai Down. I mentioned Kai. I'm going to go to the... Dan Marshall is here. Let me see. Quentin James is checking in from Louisville, Kentucky. Ken Stowe. Jeff Ripplinger. Let me see here. What else we got here? I just want to make sure I don't miss anybody. I think we pretty much got everybody. So let's jump back over to you and bring us up to speed, how you got into Monuments, and maybe what fans can expect from your music and your live shows.
So Monuments technically started in 2006 as a solo project. And at the time I was playing in another band called Fell Silent. Some of you may have heard of it. We were signed to Sumerian Records. We were actually the first overseas signing from the US to sign to Sumerian. So yeah, Ackle had Tesseract on the side, so I decided, well, at the time I was quite young, and I was like, well, if he's got something on the side, I want to start something. So Monuments started with me, and the vocalist was Joshua Travis, who now plays guitar for Immure.
Okay.
He was the drummer and guitar player at different points in time for the Tony Danza Tap Dance Extravaganza, if anyone's ever heard that band, as well as Glass Cloud. It eventually turned into a live band in 2010, and we released our first album in 2012, second album in 2014, and the latest album only 2 months ago.
Okay.
October 5th. So the style of music, it is practically Meshuggah-core.
Okay.
It's basically very inspired by Meshuggah, just polyrhythms, weird accents. Drums are pretty much 4/4. Guitar riffs are going all over the place. It sounds a lot more complicated than it probably is. And yeah, it's got something that we refer to as Milton cleans. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that phrase. It's actually a sound from the Line 6 Pod XT.
Okay.
And it's that piezoacoustic, heavily compressed, very, very sharp sound, clean sound. There's quite a few bands that have done it. You can hear it with Tesseract. We do it. There's a band from England called Hacktivist that have also used it. They were all also from Milton Keynes, actually, of all places. And there's a few other bands as well that intermingle with that sound. And that's kind of how it all started. And I guess for me, if we take the whole genre, the first people that kind of did the sound, just to explain it, is Paul Ortiz, Chimp Spanner, if you guys are familiar.
Okay.
I would consider him probably the first, even though it's quite different to Monuments. And then obviously Ackle and Misha as well. Misha from Periphery and Ackle from Tesseract. And that's kind of how the sound started.
Okay. I was playing a couple of your tunes today from the official YouTube channel, and I was showing my son, and don't take this the wrong way. It could be a compliment or I don't know. But he said it sounded, we're just talking vocals here only. He said it kind of sounded like more of a metal Linkin Park. Can you hear that a little bit maybe in the vocals?
Yeah, definitely. Like Chris is very inspired by certain pop music. I mean, he actually studied jazz, and vocals is his second instrument. His first instrument is saxophone.
Okay.
So there's a lot of influence there from more popular cultural music. Like his favorite artist is Michael Jackson.
Awesome.
Awesome. He learned to scream because of Lamb of God.
Okay.
Which I consider sort of along the commercial side of metal.
I agree.
Even though technically it doesn't sound it, but obviously it's popular. So yeah, I mean, I like Linkin Park. I grew up on Hybrid Theory.
Okay.
I remember buying it when I was, 14, 15, something like that. 2001, so I would have been 15, yeah.
Well, he's got a good ear then, because that's the first thing he said. He goes, sounds like metal Linkin Park. So that's pretty cool. The fact, too, that he's got all these versatile influences, like Michael Jackson. I mean, love him or hate him, I love his music. I love it. I love it to
Amazing.
death. And so some great classical background for your singer. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, his dad was also a musician who played with Charlie Parker.
Mm-hmm.
And he also played with the Bee Gees.
Okay.
Guy's name's Ray Barretto, and he's pretty much the guy that was responsible for salsa music.
Jeez.
So that came in his background. Yeah, so if you search Ray Barretto, I mean, he's got hundreds of albums. So that he has a very, very good background when it comes to different styles of music and different influences. Okay. Yeah.
Well, since we're talking about a whole stewing pot of really, really cool influences, a later question in the program, I was going to ask you who your influences are, but I think now's the perfect time to do that. I'm really curious to we're getting some layers here that I had no idea about in the band. Maybe share with us your influences.
Well, it started when I was very young. I remember my mum had a very diverse vinyl collection, which until recently I didn't really appreciate, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. When I was a kid, it was like, oh, it's just my mum's music. You know, she listens to it all the time. She's been collecting it since she was a kid. Mm-hmm. So what? But she had everything from Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon all the way through to stuff like Herbie Hancock, Earth, Wind and Fire, Stevie Wonder, Santana, Sade, and then my father had classical vinyl, so he had stuff like Tchaikovsky, I want to say Beethoven, basically anything that wasn't too unhappy. Okay. So he didn't have anything like Wagner or Stravinsky or anything like that. So that's where it all started. The first tape I was ever bought was Meatloaf's Bat Out of Hell 2.
Cool.
And that's why I wanted to play guitar. You know, that whole bit in it where he's like, I got my first Fender Stratocaster, blah, blah, blah. That was kind of the start of it. And then when I started playing guitar, I got into guitar because of Bon Jovi. Okay. I thought Richie Sambora was just a great guitar player and a great songwriter. I know some people probably disagree, but I think Bon Jovi's great. Yeah. And then, like, later on, obviously, we get through to the phase where I find metal. Obviously, there's Meshuggah, a band called Iron Dissonance. I rate very, very highly the Dillinger Escape Plan. A bunch of Gajira as well, very highly rated for me. One of my favorite guitar players that I always forget to mention, and I've just rediscovered his music again, is Ron Jarzenbeck.
Okay.
Are you familiar?
No, I am not. I am not at all.
Have you ever heard of Blotted Science?
It sounds familiar, but I don't think I've heard the music. I'll have to look it up.
Spastic Inc.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the guitar player from that. There's a video that you would have seen, I'm guaranteed, because it was everywhere in the early 2000s. Of his brother.
Okay.
Bobby Jarzen playing a song called Peppered Cancer on drums, and he's got cymbals behind his head that he hits.
Okay.
You would have seen it. I'll send you the link afterwards.
Okay, appreciate that.
Ron Jarzenbeck, I would consider probably one of the best metal guitar players ever, and he is so underappreciated. It's unbelievable.
Well, we're always looking for new influences here, so that's going to be really good. We can share that with the audience, too. It's funny that you mentioned Bon Jovi, because on my other show, you probably know, if you're looking some of my backstory here, I do the EVH show on Friday nights.
Of course, yeah.
And over in England, your side of the world, Van Halen was not as popular. They're not near as popular as what they are over in North America. Now, they're popular in Japan. They're popular in Australia, where you're heading with your band soon. But they did the tour with Bon Jovi over there, and Bon Jovi was much bigger than Van Halen. So on some of the dates, Van Halen was the opening act. And it was a very kind of a tough thing for, I think, maybe Van Halen to swallow, opening for Bon Jovi. But I've heard that by countless people. Bon Jovi is huge over there.
Humongous.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're talking Wembley Stadium.
Yeah.
60,000 to 80,000. Yeah.
That is absolutely crazy. But you're not the first person.
It's the weird thing, because you know the band Machine Head, right?
Oh, for sure, for sure.
I was Rob's guitar tech for one tour, because their guitar tech injured himself, and I just so happened to know a person that knew a person, you know.
Yeah, they're at the right time.
Guy that knew a guy, yeah. And they were playing Wembley Arena, which is 14,000.
Wow.
Now, I know Machine Head don't do that great in America.
Right.
So it's really strange, isn't it, how you have like
the yin and the yang
from the States. Yeah, exactly. But they're from the States. They can be massive in Japan and England, but no one in the States cares about them. So it happens. I mean, the fact that it happened in the 80s is crazy as well, isn't it?
That is. Here's something you might appreciate. And here again, too, this is more closer to home here in Canada. And this was a point I was going to bring up later in the program. How I discovered Helix was thanks to a metal player, very, very successful metal band. I'm sure you probably know them, Annihilator.
Yes, of course. Okay. Yeah. Actually, funny thing is that I use his cabs.
Oh, there you go. What a small world.
Yeah. It's weird, isn't it?
So I had Jeff Waters. Jeff Waters was an EVH endorsee for a while as well, too. And I had him on the show back, I'm going to say November-ish of 2017. I didn't know Helix from Felix. I really didn't know what it was about. Didn't know anything about it. So we got on the topic of, once we started talking about recording and live sounds, like, what do you use live? And he says, well, I use this Helix thing. I'm like, well, what's that? You know, and we got into it, and then I kind of dipped my toes in the waters of Helix to get my feet wet. And next thing you know, I'm playing in the deep end with all the big boys out there, and loved it. But thanks to metal, so don't let people say Helix can't do metal.
No, I mean, I think that anyone that says that Helix can't achieve good tones is that the person hasn't learnt it.
Right.
I think it's like, even if you just take any amp, like, you have to learn what the controls do.
Yep.
And it's going to take longer than 5 minutes. Like,
I know.
It took me, I think, probably the best part of 4 years with the Pod XT to get a sound, to understand what was going on with each different amp within it.
That's right.
It's all got different nuances, so to speak.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean?
You probably know Jason Stites in the Line 6 Helix community. He's a friend of mine just down the road from me in Canada here. But he always says, I like to kind of, I don't want to quote him because I'll say it wrong, but he's always saying that if you have a basic understanding of how the real amp works, let's say it's a Fender Twin or a Marshall or, you know, whatever it is that you're trying to emulate in Helix, you have to have a little bit of a basic understanding of the real world, how that amp would react, and maybe a couple of your favorite pedals. You know that this one will fuzz out at a certain point. If you can keep that in your mindset when you approach it to Helix, it's a lot easier for the average guitar player to start dialing in their tone.
Exactly, yeah, I agree with that as well. And also, one thing that I would suggest is actually treating it like an amp.
Right.
Like, you know, as in not using your computer to get the sound. And stuff like that, because I didn't plug my XT in until 2014 into a computer.
Wow.
So for 7 years I had that unit and I never plugged it into a computer. I just used the knobs.
Yep, ran out just dialing it as you would.
Exactly, yeah. And I think to a degree that sort of trains you to sort of, because if you sit in front of your computer, it's very sort of, it's not very personal.
I gotcha.
You know, like an amp, like when you, like the amp's right there, it's right in front of you, and you have to sort of play around with it. And I think that if you do the same thing with the modelers, then you're going to yield better results to begin with, so you understand what's going on, you know? I
like that. I think that's a good tip too, because I've kind of gone the other way. Like I did start physically by, you know, turning the knobs and dropping a block manually on the unit, but now I spoiled myself because, you know, a lot of cases I've got the rack behind me, and that's my main unit here, so it's a little harder to do if I'm sitting at the desk, so I'll spoil myself with the software. But I know what you're saying. If you're right by the unit and your mids are a little too high, you know, instead of taking a slider and dragging it, just go up there and turn it. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit more personal, isn't it? And you feel it. You're actually feeling something. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I know it's weird. It's probably just like something subliminal in my brain, but that's always the way that I've always managed to achieve what I wanted to achieve. So.
No, I don't think it's silly at all. I think it's a very, very good tip. And there's always things I try to take away from little, you know, technical takeaways from the shows here. And both for our audience and for myself in this case, I'm taking that as a takeaway. I'm going to try to preach that a little bit to people that talk to me about Helix. I'm going to say, you know, sure, you can do this on the computer. Sure, you can import presets and things like that and do all your stuff on the computer, but treat it like an amplifier, and maybe you'll get your sound a little faster than the other way around. I like it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. So we mentioned, just kind of dropped a little hint at Australia. So you guys are heading over to Australia soon. And is there anything beyond Australia? What's happening that way?
So we leave for Australia. What's the date? It's the 30th today. So we leave for Australia in about 3 weeks.
Okay.
Exactly 3 weeks, actually. Yeah. So we leave on the 20th, arrive on the 22nd for a show on the 23rd. So we start in New Zealand, actually. So we're playing in Wellington, Auckland, fly over to Australia, do Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, Adelaide, and Perth.
Wow.
It's the second time we've been to Australia, but we've never been to New Zealand before.
Okay.
So very excited about that. The crowds we had last time were insane, and I thought, this is something I always say in every single interview, is that I think that the people that watched us in Australia were insane because we clashed with Incubus.
Okay.
And I know what I would rather see.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm slightly biased, maybe.
A little bit, maybe. Australia would just be an incredible place. It's one of the places, obviously, you and I were talking off the air about Rode microphones, home of Rode. I want to go there for two reasons. I want to visit Rode, and I just want to see that beautiful country. Except I always hear these stereotypes about countries. Like everyone thinks here in Canada, as soon as they get across the border, they're looking for snowshoes and the mountains to ski on, which isn't necessarily the case. We think of Australia and we think of spiders the size of dinner plates and things like that. So the wife here is a little afraid of going over there and fearing some of these, natural inhabitants there.
I actually never saw one spider when I was in Australia.
There you go. I'll make sure I keep telling you that.
Maybe out of the city, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, we went to South Africa about 3-4 years ago, and I saw two of the biggest spiders I've ever seen.
Okay.
One of the biggest spiders. It was a huntsman, and when I told our rep, they were like, "Did you see a second one?" And I was like, "No." It was like they travel in pairs.
Oh no.
And I was like, oh my God, where was the other one? This was like literally at our door. You had to walk past it, hoping that it wasn't going to jump on you.
Oh, man. Now, how big roughly?
Yeah, it's a little bit scary.
Like size of a small dog?
I want to say that it was tarantula size.
Okay.
It was big, like at least a fist.
Yeah, that's too big for me.
It was disgusting. Oh,
no.
Yeah, no. Not a big fan of spiders.
Okay, that's the only thing that would scare me about Australia. That's the only thing. So we'll keep that in mind. If I do see one, if we ever go over there, we'll watch for the second for sure.
I mean, I don't think it's anything to be scared of. I mean, in all of the areas you're probably going to go to, if you're not going out into the outback or something, then you're probably going to be fine. If you're going out into the outback, then you're going to go with someone that's not scared of those things.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna jump back over and say hi to a few more people here when we come back. Something I discovered accidentally, and I'm really, really, really glad I did. Something of yours is your Riff Hard Guitar Academy. I want to talk about that, because I think we need a lot more of that in the rock community. And I mean, obviously you're coming from a metal side of it, but over on my EVH side of things, we always talk about Eddie Van Halen. We were saying how, of course he's an incredible lead guitar player, but he's even a better rhythm guitar player. And we'll talk about why you think rhythm is so important to focus on before you start doing the Shred Fest. So jump back over. We've got Terry's GG&G over here. Amber Gray is here. Let me see. Scott Connor is here as well. Adam EVH, Mike Francis, Kai Down. Let me see. Scroll down a little bit more. And everyone always likes to joke. Well, I'm always really bad in the chat. I'm about 3 conversations behind, but I do my best. Let me see here. I'm so sorry, everybody. Let me see here. Alec Bourne can still. I think I already said that. We're getting caught up. Let me see here. Terry's welcome men, women, boys, girls, and pets whom are tuning in today. Marcel Blade, greetings from Holland. Nice to have someone over from Holland. Metal Stage Center is here, saying hello all. Nick Rush. Do you know Nick Rush over kind of, he's not in your way, but he's over in South Africa. You mentioned South Africa. He's a Yamaha and Line 6 artist over there. You have to look him up.
What's his name again?
Nick Rush.
Nick Rush. Let's have a look. I'm really bad with names.
Oh, it's
I'm
okay.
a bass guy.
Amazing player. He's a Yamaha artist in Line 6.
Okay.
And while you're doing that, Kai Down says, just want to say the Browne and Steel Helix factory preset video is the main video that got me onto the Helix. Showed it to my dad rock personified, and even converted him to digital too. That's pretty awesome.
That's awesome. Is that the one that I did with the GoPro? It's like pretty potato quality.
I don't know.
Hopefully he hears this and then he can reply and we can come back to this.
Yeah.
I think I know the one that he's talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
It's a long old time ago. I actually need to do an updated version of the video actually now that I understand the unit a lot more.
It's
that was when I first got it.
Speaking of video, I got this here again too. It's so nice. Everything's working into place. This was the thing I had on the itinerary, was to talk about your YouTube channel. Obviously someone here that takes YouTube very, very serious. Our whole family does. Your YouTube channel is gold, man.
Thank you very much.
First of all, I don't know how you find the time, but because, you know, people that don't have the time, you know, they're going to take some shortcuts to make, you know, to get things out there. But you're very busy with the band. You're a streamer yourself, but the quality and the content on your channel is superior. And we have you linked in the description today. And we'll be also sprinkling some links through the live chat today. But hats off on an incredible channel. I just watched the video you did last night on the Rev Peddle, and It's pretty awesome, man.
Yeah, it's that was actually a little bit late because Christmas got in the way.
Yep.
The actual, I mean, it doesn't realistically take that much time to do the videos.
Mm-hmm.
What actually takes the time is the preparation.
Yes.
So, like the writing of some music, sometimes I'm just not inspired to do that.
Yeah.
You know? And then obviously getting a mix. So if you think about every single stage, you write the music, you film everything, you do all the audio, you line everything up, you do all the cuts and stuff. It does. I guess it does take quite a time. I've just kind of streamlined it after this point. I mean, you know what it's like. You know, when you first did the live streams on this, you were overwhelmed by how much stuff you had to focus on.
That's right.
Yeah, and it's just the same thing with videos. I mean, when I have time, I try and do as many as possible. I try and do one a week. And I've got quite a lot of gear to do some demos on, actually, just looking over there.
Yeah.
At what I have to do. And yeah, if I've got the time, I'll do it. I love doing it. It's just fun for me.
I'm sure you find, too, like the audience that you meet, because now you're connecting to people. I mean, you still do it with the tour and selling records and things like that, but you're connecting with people all around the world, and they're messaging you saying, you know, you helped me make my decision on this, you know, or I bought that pedal because of the way you demoed it. It's a really rewarding feeling, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And like one of the things that I don't like doing is saying anything too negative.
Right.
I just would prefer not to review it.
You nailed it right there. I do the exact same thing. I'm sure you find this too. We probably all follow a lot of these great YouTubers out there where, you know, they'll do okay, this product is a great one. I give it an 8 out of 10. And this guy says it's a 1 out of 10. There's many people out there that do the positive, negative reviews, and they do it well. So why should we reinvent the wheel? We just review something if we like it. It's there. It's not because, you know, you're paid to do it or whatever. It's just, why do something and invest your time in it if you're not going to like it anyways?
Exactly, yeah. And there's been a few things that I've not liked, and I've purposely try to be as nice as possible. Mm-hmm. And I think it actually makes you come across worse.
Yep.
So now I just try and do products that I actually think, right, I can make that sound good and feel good about it at the end, you know?
That's right.
So, yeah.
And I'm sure, too, if someone sends you something, that you're going to take some time before you start rolling that camera. Like, I think where a lot of people can go wrong sometimes is, let's say, like, unboxings are fun. You've done some.
Yep.
And I think one of the worst things you'd want to do is maybe grab a guitar out of a box and start playing it right away, because you just never know. So it's always good. It's cool to maybe show it, but then maybe say come back on Tuesday and we'll do the recap part 2 and we'll play the guitar. If you need some setup, you do that. But that way there's no surprises, and you get to learn the product a little bit as well too. And that way you know all about it when you go to do your review. Exactly.
I think like it's just two different sides of the coin, isn't it? I don't think necessarily anything are bad. It depends how you as a person take the situation.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And just trying to be positive if it's a bad situation, like the guitars is, not very good.
That's right.
Because that'd be the worst thing. Wouldn't it? Imagine the worst thing for me would be picking up that guitar and it being set up the complete wrong way for how I'm used to playing.
Yeah.
That would be a nightmare for me.
And I'm not sure if you, I mean, you're a hell of a lot better guitar player than I am, but I bet you if you come on, but if you had a guitar and the action was like this high and you're used to it like this, you're going to probably feel like you just started playing guitar for the first time, and now you've got your live stream watching you, and you're like, okay, let's tell some jokes or something to take the, you know?
Yeah.
It's pressure.
Yeah. The funny thing is for me, it's the other way around. I actually prefer to have a higher action than one too low.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah, just because of how hard I hit the strings.
That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, so like I don't get me wrong, I like a low action. I like it when it feels good. You know, you don't have to work too hard.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's just too low and you literally touch the string and you're fretting, that to me is just my worst nightmare, because the moment that I fret, it's out of tune. You know, because of how hard I press down, and then obviously I have my right hand hitting it very, very hard, and it just frets out. So that actually, to me, is a worse scenario than the other way around.
Well, that makes sense. So yeah. I don't even own a 7-string guitar, or God forbid, an 8-string guitar. So I don't ever have practice with them. But is that something you're going to want a slightly higher action with anyways, too?
On the bass side, yes. On the lower strings, the thicker strings, definitely. I mean, you don't need to play an 8-string guitar, trust me.
Right. Right.
7-string's kind of cool, though. There's certain things that you can do. I mean, you know, take John Petrucci from Dream Theater.
Mm-hmm.
He's written some great stuff with the 7-string and the 6 strings, and he's utilized both in completely different ways. And I think the best way to sort of think about the 7-string is it's only 5 extra notes.
Okay, good way to look at it.
And then it becomes less daunting.
Yeah, the intimidation factor is kind of put by the wayside.
Exactly, because a story about the first 7-string I bought, I actually sold it because it used to hurt my wrist. I sold it after having it for a month. Funnily enough, I sold it for my original first Pod Pro.
Okay, that's cool.
So yeah, I mean, I didn't like it first, but then 3 years later I returned and I liked it again. So maybe give it a try and see what you think. Just think, 5 extra notes, that's all.
Yeah. Well, you
can handle it.
Maybe. I was told by a friend of mine who's on the show before on the other side on EVH, Rusty Cooley. He's a big 7-string player, and he was telling me, it's like, how do you come up with these riffs? And he goes, a lot of them were written on 6-string, and I just shift them. And I was like, well, that sounds crazy. And then I started thinking, no, actually, it's not. And I mean, he's a great 7-string player.
Yeah, that's actually how I write as well. So a lot of the stuff on the 8-string, I'll write on the 7, and I think this part could do being a little bit low, and then I'll just transpose it. So then it becomes a lot less daunting then, because then you've literally used it as a tool just to sort of change the timbre of the part you've written. And same with 6 and 7 as well. Yeah, I've done it written on 6 and moved to 7. In fact, there's a song on Mayones called Quasimodo.
Okay.
And that was written on an acoustic guitar in D.
Wow.
That song. And then brought it back on the 7. It sounded cool. And I was like, yeah, sick.
So kids going into the local guitar center or wherever they go, the mom and pop shops to pick up a guitar, and they see a 7-string that they think looks pretty nice, I think you would say don't be intimidated by it and pick it up and try it, right?
Exactly, yeah. Don't be intimidated. As I say, it's only 5 extra notes. It'll take you a couple of weeks to get used to the feel of having an extra string there on your, on this part of the wrist. And also so you don't get lost here.
Right.
So there was another way that I didn't get lost, is that we would tune to B flat on 6 strings.
Okay.
So then I got an extra high string when we moved to 7 instead of the extra low. So then it was a lot less brain, what's the word I'm looking for? My brain didn't get hurt by the fact that I'm trying to miss the low string to play 6-string stuff. So I think it's just the way you approach it is whether you like it or you don't.
That's very
Perception
cool.
is everything, right?
That's right. I can cheat a little bit right now. I was doing it just before the call today. I was playing with the Variax and I was through Helix, and we can turn that thing into anything. So I basically had a 7-string except for the top string, and I had it tuned down. And it was just kind of getting in the zone. I was actually trying your preset, which we're going to give away today as well too. Trying that preset in a 7-string mode, and it sounded good. But let's jump. We just kind of hinted at this a moment ago. We talked about the Riff Hard. Tell us. I think that's a fantastic thing. Tell us when that came about and what it is and how fans can sign up to it.
Okay, so Riff Hard is the world's first, as far as we know, guitar, I guess, school, academy that's aimed specifically for rhythm guitar at this point in time.
Okay.
And it's basically focusing on the aspects on what can improve all aspects of your picking, not just for rhythm, but for everything. The way that I think about it is rhythm is kind of the foundation. 99% of the time you're going to be playing rhythm. So the best way to get better at all aspects of the guitar is to improve your rhythm. So there's a lot of picking exercises to pick up speed, endurance, stamina for the right hand. So that, I mean, most of it's down picked, but doing the down picking is still the same motion as alternative picking. So alternate picking, sorry, not alternative, alternate picking. So it's the same muscle. So basically from doing these exercises, it's going to improve that as well. Yeah, it's just riffhard.com. There's exercises on that. In fact, it's actually called the down picking gym.
Oh, I like that.
We've kind of tried to make it as though, you're, a lot of people work out and you have to build it up incrementally. And we're kind of trying to show people that that's what you have to do to get better. There's a songwriting section of the site. There's live events. There's something called Riff Rescue, which will go live next month. Okay. Where I will take anyone that's signed up, I'll take one of their songs or riffs, and I will basically try to change it to be how I would do it. So then they can take that and they can use that if they want to. That's awesome. And I'll be doing that as a live event every single month. There's pre-workout exercises, the exercises that you should do before you get into the hard stuff, and warming down exercises, of course. Kind of like if you're running, you're supposed to keep walking once you've done your run. And yeah, there's a lot of things on that site, man. There is. We've actually been filming for the best part of 3 years. Wow. So there's a lot of content ready. It's going to be, fed incrementally to everyone. There's a community online on Facebook that everyone can ask me questions whenever they want, and I'll always be there to entertain, basically.
I love that.
And it's very, very cheap. It's $29 a month.
That's very affordable. It is. I saw that today. And actually, on your splash page of your site, one thing that I really liked, I saw the price on there as well. But there's a teaser video that you put on there. And what I liked about it is you had an assistant put down some tab, whatever, and you hadn't seen it. When you shot the cameras on, you haven't seen it yet. And he orchestrated a couple riffs, alternating between two strings, whatever. And then you did it with various tempo without even looking at it. And then you went from probably 4 tempo changes and yourself learning it for the first time. That's what you're trying to show the audience and to show how quickly they can do it.
Yeah, exactly. And also that's also about picking up different muscle memories.
Yes.
So that particular exercise, so I can try and explain that. I won't do it with a guitar, but say we have 7 notes. So we're going to do 7/8 over 4/4. So it'll be like 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 1 2, etc. So then let's take 1 to 7. And for beat 1, you miss it out. So it'll be rest 2 3 4 5 6 7. Or miss out beat 2. So then you play 1 rest 3 4 5 6 7, and exercises like that. And then so the accents and the rests are in different places. Okay. And it picks up new muscle memories that maybe you're not used to, which will inspire you to write music as well. And it also, in the time of that, it will also get you used to playing in time signatures you might not be used to. Okay. So it's actually doing 4 different things. It's improving your right hand stamina, speed, and endurance. It's inspiring you to write different things than you would be used to. And it's building up different muscle memories. Loads of different things in these exercises, man. Like, we spent a lot of time trying to work out how we can actually improve people in a short space of time. And these exercises, even from me just filming them, was making me a better guitar player. So,
isn't that good?
But there's loads of stuff on that, yeah.
Fantastic.
Very, very exciting. But I'll tell you what, I was very stressed filming that part.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, so he wrote numbers from 1 to 7 in a random order. At 100 beats per minute, which is the slowest one, it was fine. It wasn't so bad. Yeah. When it started getting faster, my brain just hurt. And that's the point. It's building up different muscle memory. So the point of that is you're supposed to write random numbers down, try the riff, missing out, either doing a rest on the notes or doing an accent. So say you're palm muting every single note and then you accent the different beats instead. So you open up your hand. It's really strange at first. I'll send you the exercise so you can try it out and see what you think.
I would love that. Thank you. I think the cool thing about that too is, kids, and it might not just be kids who are going to join, it'll be adults as well too, but if they see you sweat a little bit, it's okay for them to sweat. And it kind of threw you for a curve. And, that's good. It's human. Everyone is human, and I think they can adapt to that. But it's a really good course. And I can't emphasize enough about learning rhythm guitar. Like I joke about it on the EVH show. Talk about all these kids out there that can play, every single solo there is. and then they hear these isolated tracks of, let's say, like I'm the One or things like that by Van Halen, and it's like, what the heck? Who's this rhythm player? This guy is great. Well, that's the same dude, you know, and it's often overlooked.
It is. It's really overlooked. Like when you think of a good rhythm guitarist, obviously you think of Van Halen, but who else do you think of?
I like James Hetfield from Metallica. You know,
one of the best, if not the best.
I think he's great. That hand, you watch that stuff and you try to do what he does sometimes if you're just a straight ahead rock and roll player, and you get tired pretty quick and you cramp up.
Dude, definitely. Have you tried playing Master of Puppets all down-picked from start to finish?
I couldn't do it. No, not
It is
easy.
realistically a nightmare. It is horrible. It is, and he's singing at the same time.
Yeah.
It's like, that guy is so underrated. I mean, Metallica isn't. They're huge, but as a guitar player and appreciate, because you know when we're all starting out, we play Master of Puppets, we alternate pick it, and we think, oh, we got this. This is really easy. But then when you actually try to down pick it, it is one of the hardest songs I've ever played.
Well,
still to this day.
That's crazy. That's good to know too from someone that's the talent of your level. So that's good to know. We have a couple of really good questions waiting for you over in the chat as well too. So there's one from Alec Bourne and there's a couple from Ben Caffrey. So Alex says, what tunings do you use on your 7? You might have alluded to it a little bit, but are there any special tunings that you like to use?
Yeah, I play in this weird, I'm sure you guys have heard of Dadgad tuning.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Led Zeppelin Kashmir probably is one of the main ones that comes to mind. It's that tuning, but transposed down to B flat. So the tuning would be from low to high: B flat, F, B flat, E flat, F, B flat, with an extra high string, which is an E flat. So if we skip out the high string, that's the Dadgad, and then there's an extra high string. And if you take away the low string, the B flat, you actually have 2 sets of the same 3 notes. So you have F, B flat, and E flat twice. So when it comes to writing music and you want to play things in different octaves, it's really handy for stuff like that as well. It's a bit weird to get used to at first, but the main reason that I tuned to that tuning initially was Ackle introduced me to it from Tesseract, but then I was struggling to write music in standard tuning because I was just following the shapes and the theory that I'd learned.
Okay.
So yeah.
Nice.
If you're ever stuck with writing music, just try tuning your guitar in a really weird tuning, write something, and then try and play it back in your normal tuning. And that will inspire different muscle memories as well.
Good to know.
Play it.
There's a Canadian artist here. You may not know him because he's definitely not in the metal vein, but a good friend of mine, and he's a crazy guitar player and alternate tuning guy, is Ian Thornley from Big Wreck. Have you heard of him?
Wait a second. I know the name Ian Thornley.
Yeah.
Give me a minute. I'm going to write his name down so I can check this out afterwards.
You'll love him as a guitar player, but he does some crazy tunings, and the beauty he gets out of the rhythm arrangements are insane. But while you look him up, another question coming in from Ben Caffrey, and I'll send you a link to him if you can't find him. Ben Caffrey says, does John find he has very different tones or signal path presets for live versus studio?
I'm pretty lazy these days with getting a guitar sound. One of my main go-to guitar sounds, if I just want to mess about, is actually still on my Pod XT.
Nice.
And it's the guitar tone I use for Gnosis, which is 2012. And it's just because it works. Do you know what I mean? I know what I'm doing with it. So when it comes to live and studio, obviously live, we use amps.
Yep.
With the Helix. I can explain a little bit more about it further in the show.
Okay.
But when it comes to in the studio, it literally just depends on what I'm doing.
Gotcha.
So I'll jump between I've got the Pod XT in my rack over here. I can show you guys in a little bit actually.
Sure.
With the Helix, I've got 6 amps 7 amps, sorry, that I'll mic up occasionally, depending what I'm doing. And yeah, it just totally depends. Helix obviously is the go-to most of the time. I actually have the patch that I sent to you open right now, and even though it says number 6 in it, it actually sounds good for 7 and 8 as well.
Oh, fantastic.
It's just that I made the patch with a 6 string, so that's kind of why I was naming it that.
No, I did throw it on my Helix, and we're going to actually put that in the download link here. That's one of the cool things that we've done here on the show is every week we have a new guest, and we provide a download link from the artist. And I saw it was it the PV Panama that you used for that one?
Of course, yeah, definitely.
Nice. So that 5150, the original PV 5150, is very popular in the metal community, isn't it?
It's funny that I have a guitar sound with that because the actual amp I really hate playing through.
Right.
But I love how it sounds.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Oh, it does.
It feels so weird to play.
Yep.
I don't know why. It's just one of those things. I never fell in love with the amp, but every single time I hear it, I want one. And then when I play it, I don't want one.
That's right. Well, I saw your review you did on the the MXR 5150 overdrive pedal, and I noticed how you said, you know, the amp you didn't really necessarily like, but you like it what's getting out of the pedal after you used it more in a preamp mode. You really enjoyed it, so it's really cool. But I've heard other people as well too. The Gear Gods guys, Trey was saying he really enjoyed the 5150 in the metal community. But a couple other really good questions as well too. I'll save my questions to ask fan questions. First, there's another one from Ben, but I'm going to ask a question from Richard. He says, is there any plans for John to bring out an 8-string? And I wonder if hopefully I'm pronouncing it right. The Mayones, is that the brand?
There's a couple of different ways to pronounce it, but yeah, that's close.
Probably the safest.
I mean, I prefer to say mayonnaise. It's fun.
I don't know. I didn't want to be that guy and say it wrong, so I didn't want to be, laughed at. But he's asking if there's a chance to bring on 8-string and have the Energy Burst 7-string at home. He has that, and it's an awesome guitar.
Thank you very much for grabbing that guitar, the purple one. It's amazing. I love that guitar. I still use Prototype #1 more than anything else I have for that guitar because it's awesome. But when it comes to an 8-string with the DeVelle, they have to completely redesign it. That's the problem.
Oh, okay.
So with the 7, it's verging on the neck being too heavy for the body.
Oh, I see.
So they would have to enlarge the size of the body to make it an 8-string. And I don't think 8-strings sell enough for them to warrant doing it right now.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I would assume there'd have to be some crazy dual carbon fiber type of truss rod system in there or something like that too.
They'd probably, I mean, on the Regis 8 that I have, I think it has carbon fiber rods down it as well as the truss. I can't remember exactly, but I think that's what it is. And I think it's not so much as the problem with that stuff. I think it's literally they have to make the body bigger.
That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah,
which I think they're going to have to do anyway if they ever want to put a Floyd Rose on the DeVelle as well, because they've been trying to work that problem out for a while as well. I know.
And you mentioned, I watched a couple of your demos. I think it was doing some early ones for Mayones. You were saying that one time you were a Floyd Rose guy, and see that's what I love as well too. I can't play a guitar without a trem. But do you miss a trem sometimes? Is that something you are going to, like you mentioned, you might try to work in?
I actually do miss a trem, and what it is when you're bending another string and then you can go like a semitone lower on the low string. Yeah, it's really cool effect, and the flutter effects that you can do and stuff like that. But one thing that I definitely don't miss is changing strings on those down.
I know. And now, were you floating a floating trem, or was it flush?
No, I had so before I was with the Mayones, I was with Ibanez, and I had the baritone 1077. You might know it. It was like a blue guitar with the middle pickup and 2 humbuckers, which had a low pro edge on it.
And they're nice tremolos.
Yeah, really good trems. But I just live, it was just such a pain in the ass, So I blocked them all on all 3 of them that I had, and even then, just needing an Allen key to change the strings.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, I can understand, like, if I had a tech, then I probably wouldn't care and it would be cool.
Yep, switch guitars all the time and you're all set.
Exactly. But, it used to take, 20-30 minutes to change one set of strings or something like that?
That's too much, yeah.
I guess you could, nowadays, you could probably have the locking machine heads.
Yep.
And that would probably work, especially if you have, a graphite nut. Maybe one day.
Yeah. Well, it's good to know for sure. A few more questions coming in as well, too. Ben Caffrey with the second question says, what's the Monuments writing process? Do you bring flesh out ideas, or do you have them all in the room type jams?
For the first 2 records, it was mostly, 99% me. Just sat in a room or just jamming on a guitar somewhere, basically.
Okay.
And then I'd wait till I had 3 or 4 riffs, and then I'll sit at a computer, flush them out, see what comes about. With Phronesis, again, it was the same process for me, but also Ollie was more involved. So it's the first song we ever wrote together was Leviathan. We've never written music together in a room before, and that one is completely both of us in a room. And I think it's just, for me, it's very difficult for me to write music and get into that zone when there's other people around. It's one of those things. I've done the jam in the band, jam in the room with the band thing before with my old band, and I think it's just a case of the fact that our singer lives in New York and our drummer lives in Dublin, and then the rest of us are all over the UK. It just makes it very difficult to do that process. If we were all in the same area, then it's something that we could do. I mean, in fact, actually, before we recorded this album, we really wanted to do that with Phronesis, but we just weren't able to make it happen, basically.
Gotcha. There's another question here for you, too. I'm just trying to see if I can find it. I scrolled too fast here, and I lost it. I can probably pick it up. So we talked about the 7-string guitars, and I'm Second Winston's guitar player from Russia has been using odd tunings before it was in vogue. Yeah, Alex Lifeson, love him to death. That's for sure. Okay, yep. Kai Down says, question for John, what modern bands would you recommend for more chordal-based rhythm playing, digging the extended chords and stuff like Dance, Gavin Dance, and looking for some heavier inspirations?
I actually really like Billy Talent.
Okay, that's cool.
Canadian band,
yeah,
right?
That's right.
Yeah, my girlfriend got me onto them recently, and I think he has some very, very cool, interesting rhythm parts. Like, yep. He will he'll play like the melody on the high strings and follow the bass with the low strings. It's really quite cool. The Deer Hunter.
Okay,
that's another one.
Not familiar with that.
The Deer Hunter. Yeah, that's a really good one as well.
Okay.
My mind's just gone completely blank.
That's okay. It's a couple to go with.
Gajira have some really cool chord things going on.
Yeah.
I really love Gajira. I would say check out The Way of All Flesh and Le Font Sauvage and From Master Sirius. They're the three sort of gems, in my opinion. Just trying to have a little think of more metal bands with chordal-based things. I'll come back to this question.
That's totally fine. That's totally fine. Yeah, certainly don't mean to put you on the spot. JJ's House of Jams says, John, do you still use your Mesa TC50? He loves his, he says.
Yeah, I actually have it here, rack mount one.
Nice.
I really, really, really like it. I also have a dual rectifier preamp. I've got 3 dual rectifiers as well. I really love the Mesa gear. Yeah, it's not going anywhere.
Good to know. Well, next question for you is, this is from myself. So you are obviously a collector and a user of all kinds of amps. I've seen everything from the PVs through, the messes like you're saying as well too, everything that's out there. You talked about the Rev that you're looking at getting, get sometime down the road. But and lots of rack gear, lots of pedals, which is awesome. How did you make the move? First of all, how did you even find Line 6? I know you talked about Pod and things like that, but more so maybe how did you discover Helix, and how did that become a staple part of your both studio and live tone?
I might get someone into trouble if I tell you.
Okay, well you can kind of hint around, you can dance around it if you like, without saying the full thing.
We visited Line 6 in 2014, and the old artist relations guy, his name was D.
Okay.
So this is before Matt was the artist relations at the USA one with Frank. Frank wasn't even there either.
Okay.
And, I started chatting to them, and we weren't allowed in certain parts of the building.
Right.
Because it was off bounds.
Yep, I've heard some stories like that.
And then I heard from a certain guitar player that there was a new product from Line 6 about 2-3 months before it was released.
Okay.
And I was sworn to secrecy. Obviously, I didn't say anything. I was very, very quiet about it. And the guy just said, this is a complete game changer. It's the best thing you'll ever hear. And I was like, okay. So then what happened was, the reason that I met Frank was I had a problem with my HD Pro while I was on tour. Something happened to it. And he got me a new one out within 24 hours.
Wow.
And then, yeah, it was insane. And then we were talking, and he's like, hey, do you want to try out the Helix? And I was like, well, yeah. And that's kind of how it all started. The moment I plugged it in, I was like, this thing sounds amazing. And now they've implemented all the old effects from the Pod XT. So all the old reverbs and all the old delays.
All the legacy stuff.
Which had something really magic about it. Like, I love the cave reverb and the hall reverb from the Legacy.
Okay.
There was something about it, man. Maybe it's just because I know how to use it.
Right.
And same with the analog delay as well. And the swell effect, which is finally in. That swell effect is a huge part of the Amanuensis. It's used, and Gnosis, it's used on a lot of the songs on that record. So the fact that I can now recreate those songs with the Helix, because I used to take both the Pod XT and the Helix around with me on tour.
Okay.
Just because of a couple of those effects, yeah. Please put the piezo acoustic model in the Helix.
You never know. One may never know, right?
They got the big bomb in there.
Yeah. Who knows? Who knows what's coming? Well, that's fantastic. I love to hear the stories of that. And Frank's mentioning in the chat too, he says, I was there, but not in my current position. So he was probably doing something else at the company, not in his current role.
It might have Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what he says.
2014?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah. So you must remember D then. Okay, cool.
There you go. And here's a question from Island Sounds. Now, obviously, he's talking about rhythm here, and this is going to be an other than situation, other than joining your course that you have, your academy, and maybe even that as well too. But maybe just some simple tips. He says, question for John: with so much focus on soloing these days, what would you recommend for someone trying to become a rhythm player? Often struggle with timing. Metronome, I think, would probably be a good one. But what else could you say other than your course too?
Yeah, definitely a metronome. I think that if you spend 10 minutes a day with a metronome, you're going to see an improvement within a month.
Right.
Like easily. Just because then you start building your automatic human body clock, which is what Thomas Hawker has from Sugar. And it's just getting used to, like, what does it feel like to play in time. Playing with a drummer that's good that plays to a metronome is also a good one. I mean, the best way to do it is recording yourself and seeing what's wrong.
Mm-hmm. Because I agree with that. And not only seeing what's wrong, sometimes seeing what's right. Because, first of all, you're going to see your mistakes, and it's a hard pill to swallow when you see yourself really making bad mistakes. But that's why I always encourage bands, young, inexperienced, experienced, and everything in between, to record every single thing you do, because you're going to watch some shows back sometimes or some videos at home, and you're going to be like, how the heck was I playing that? That's beyond my talent level. I shouldn't have been able to do that. And then analyze it like the football coach does, and say, what were we doing here? And it can really help you.
That's actually a really good idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Recording every single live show is a good way to, but also so you can hear yourself individually where you're going wrong where you're going right.
That's right. And maybe
I'm really good at this, so I don't need to focus on that, but I could maybe do some work on this.
That's right.
Because this guy saying his timing's bad, it's probably not as bad as he thinks it is.
Nope.
And play into a metronome 10 minutes a day, even just something like, warm-up exercises, the 1, 2, 3, 4 thing.
Yes.
Where you move up.
Yep.
Doing that to a metronome for 10 minutes a day you're gonna see amazing results on your timing.
Very good.
That's pretty much what I did. I recorded myself. I noticed where the problems were, and I was like, how can I fix this? And spent a couple of years fixing it, and that was it. I say a couple of years. I'm still doing it now.
I think sometimes it's good as well too. I mean, it may kind of frustrate your family members, but the sweetie wants you to come and spend some time, sit on the couch, go out there. Yeah, sure. I'm gonna bring my guitar, bring your iPhone with you, and put a metronome app on there, headphone in, and acoustically work on the metronome skills. That's
actually a really good way to do it as well. Yeah.
Noodling on the couch.
I think sometimes not thinking too much about it and just sort of doing it, because half the learning is when you're asleep as well.
True.
Like, you've had those days where you go to bed and you can't play that one thing that you've written or that one thing that you tried to play, and you come to it the next morning and you can play it because your brain's still trying to comprehend what's going on.
That's right.
So I think that even doing it in the background, like you say, is going to help a lot, even if you're not just focusing on every little mistake.
I think sometimes it does help because you're hearing yourself acoustically on an electric guitar. There's nothing to assist you. So if it sounds nice on an acoustic guitar sitting at the edge of the couch, I shouldn't say an acoustic guitar, electric guitar, or even on an acoustic, when you plug that in and you got that down to a science, it's going to be phenomenal when you dial in your delays, your reverbs, whatever sounds you like.
Exactly. And actually another way to do good practice is practice without a noise gate.
Yes. Yep.
Learn to control the distortion.
Like that's right.
That's what Hendrix did.
Perfect example.
That's perfect.
He's a great one because he's playing like on the seat of of destruction. Eddie Van Halen, the same thing too. All these days back in the day, and I try not to talk about Eddie Van Halen too much on this show because it's a different show and it's a thing, but it's a perfect topic now. He would have these other artists like Ted Nugent and some of these other people back in the day that they'd be doing a gig with Van Halen. And he'd say to the guitar tech, let me plug into his rig. I can get in there and I can plug in that. And they crash and burn because they don't know how to control it.
Exactly.
Each person has their own control of the sound, the volume, how to hold the guitar without feedback, or how to make feedback when you want it,
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's all those little nuances. And also, if you play without a metronome, then you will do the right amount of gain that is good for your picking as well. Like one thing I've noticed is that people use far too much gain.
Yep.
Especially for rhythm.
Yes.
For solos, I get it because you get the creaminess and you get the compression and stuff like that. But when it comes to rhythm, you probably need a lot less than you think. And the harder that you hit is where the gain comes from.
I agree with that. Cascading gain. Volume equals gain. And another thing, I noticed like in the metal community, I noticed a lot of times mids are scooped. And I don't play in the metal community. I play in rock. But I found some things that make you stand out in the band as well too. And people have actually even made videos about me kind of thinking it was kind of neat that I'd take my mids and I'd dime them. I'd literally dime my mids, bring my bass back quite a bit. My gain is maybe still a little too high. Like on a 5150, I'm maybe 2 o'clock. That's gainy. But
Whoa, really?
Yeah. Now, where would you be? About 10 o'clock?
No, on the EVH head, the one. So I've had a Stealth, and I had the 50-watt one as well.
Yeah.
My gain was on the point before it stopped.
Oh wow! So okay, wow.
All the way down, yeah.
Okay, wow, that's crazy. Isn't that something?
I hit very, very hard though.
Okay.
It's something that I mean, I also use. I don't use an overdrive, but I boost the volume a tiny little bit.
Okay.
On a just to get a little bit more gain, so then you can turn the gain down a lot more, because then you just get the clarity kind of thing that you need for metal. Like it just depends on what genre of music you play.
That's right.
You know?
That's a tip. I mean, that was a shocker for me to hear that today, but I'm excited to know that, because I would have. That's my ignorance with the genre of music. I didn't know how you'd achieve that. That's cool.
And with mids as well, I don't necessarily scoop.
Okay.
So on the video you saw with the Rev, yes, the mid was scooped. But let me just grab something. So I normally use... let me just get rid of these headphones.
No problem. And Riley, I'll be right there with your question as well, too.
Use something like this. So I've got 2 pedals here, and I have this before the amp. So here's one.
Oh, nice.
Go further away. There we go.
Yep, got it.
Now it's in focus.
Yep.
And then, or something like this. So,
yeah, it's a GE7.
Exactly, a genius pedal. So, say I'm playing on a 7-string, I would do something like this before the amp. So I'm cutting 100 and 200, so a little bit of the low mids.
Okay.
Which, if you hear a 7-string, it's got that sort of low fart to it. You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Which you don't have the... Well, amps are made for 6-string, aren't they? So you kind of have to sort of tailor the sound a little bit. Boost the volume a tiny little bit. Sorry, the thing's missing.
Yeah.
And boost a little bit of 1.6. Sometimes I do that. Sometimes I don't. It depends on the amp. And that sort of means that you don't have to scoop the mids. Because when you're scooping the mids, you're trying to get the tightness.
Yeah.
That's kind of what you're trying to achieve, which you don't have that problem with a 6-string. So
the
reason why it was scooped on the Rev demo is because I didn't have the EQ pedal before.
Perfect.
Trying to achieve the same sound. So I like high mids myself.
Okay, there you go. Perfect. And that's funny that you show that pedal as well, too, because at one time I used to use an MXR Distortion Plus and that GE10. And that was my only pedals I had for the longest time with the Marshall. And that was simple, and it really, really worked. It's
cool, isn't it? Did you use the EQ pedal in the loop or before?
Actually, that one would have been in the loop, I think, because usually that's how I do mine. Yeah.
That's you get a lot more control if you do it in the loop.
Exactly. Just like I do with the 5150 now, I use the Exotic EP booster. I don't use, well, actually, I'm using almost 99.999% Helix now. But when I do play the tube amp, I put the EP booster through the loop, and I don't even have the gain on it. It's just the boost mode, and it's just enough. And it's an always-on pedal, by the way, too.
Okay. And and it just like boosts the volume a little bit and tightens everything up.
Just a tiny bit warmer too. It's almost like you just added another power amp tube for some reason. But here's another good question too from Riley IO Acura. It says, I must have asked my question too early. I shall ask again. For John, how do you and Ollie set up the Helix with the Hughes and Kettner for your individual playing styles and technique?
Well, on this tour, because it was Ollie's, so basically it was our first time using the Hughes and Kettners on this last tour. And Ollie just took my presets and kind of changed them a tiny little bit to what he wanted to. Obviously, when it comes to setting up an amp with the Helix, it does take quite a long time for the amount of songs and the amount of channel changes and all that sort of stuff. So he figured that instead of him setting it all up, he'll just take mine. And I did all the work, you know.
Gotcha.
So basically it's set up. So if we take the Helix, we've got the top row and the bottom row. Top row will be pedals before the amp.
Gotcha.
Bottom row will be pedals in the loop. But it also gets a little bit more complicated than that because for all of our clean sounds, it's directly through the Helix.
Nice.
Now, this took me a long time to figure out how to do it so that when I mute the amp, that I can play through the Helix with a clean sound direct to the PA.
Okay.
So Yeah, in fact, let me just. I'll bring it. I can bring it up on my computer here. I can have a look at it.
Sure.
And can sort of explain the signal path. Yeah, here we go. So, is that the right one? Is it user 2 or user 3? Yeah, it must be user 2. So, I think it's in the wrong order. But here we go. Yeah, so basically, I wonder if there's any way that I can do... I don't think there's any... I'll send this picture to you afterwards, because I think it's going to be better to explain it that way. So basically, I'd plug the guitar into the front of the Helix. The output would go to... send 1, sorry, would go to the amp.
Okay.
And then... yeah, send 1 would go to the amp, and then the XLRs would go to the PA.
Gotcha.
And then the loop would go through 3 and 4, I think. Yeah, 3 and 4, I think. Yeah, so basically, 2 of the send and return, 2 would go to the amp, send 1 would to the loop of the amp, send 1 would go to the front of the amp. Again, I'll send the picture because it's going to be so much easier to explain this if you can visually see it. So in the top row, we've got a compressor. We've got an EQ pedal doing exactly what I just stated on this thing. An OCD pedal, compulsive drive, which is literally just boosting volume and changing the tone. And then a noise gate, a delay pedal, and then a volume to turn it off. So, and then in the loop, we have it splits. And then in the bottom line, it has, what's that? Oh, that's the return. Another compressor, a chorus, the amp, which is Archer type clean.
Okay, nice.
With the there's no cab, so it's just the amp direct, and then another compressor, a delay, a verb, and an EQ into another compressor.
Oh, nice, nice.
And then so I'll send a picture of this so you can see how complex this was.
It sounds like it, yeah.
To work out.
Well,
so basically, what I would do is so that I'd have like snapshots set up.
Yep.
So I'd have it would change channels on the amp, and it would change in and out some of the pedals.
Perfect.
So when I turned to the clean sound on the amp, all the amp controls were turned off.
Okay.
It would mute any signal going to the amp, and then it would turn on the clean sound through the amp. So yeah, there's a way to do it. So it's really hard to explain. I don't even know how it works.
No, that's okay. No, we get it for sure. No, that's
but it's actually I've just worked out how it works. So basically, the top line it goes to send 1.
Mm-hmm.
Send 1 is then coming back into the second line.
Gotcha.
And these would be muted. And basically, then it would send directly from the guitar to the second line for the clean. Whereas when it wouldn't, it would just do. It's so hard to explain. My brain hurts.
No, it's okay. It's totally fine. But the possibilities are...
I will send this to you so you can see it. It's probably easier to do that.
I'll post it on the Helix Hour Facebook page as well, too, and we'll reference it. And actually what we'll do is I'll put a timestamp for where this video is, and then I'll reference a picture, which will help, too. But the possibilities are endless. It's just your imagination, really, that is the limit.
It took me hours to work this out.
I bet. I bet.
I knew it was possible. It was just a case of working it out. There's so many different things you can do with this unit, but it works really, really well. For the Hughes and Kettner, we literally had the Helix and the Hughes and Kettner, no pedals, nothing.
Isn't that great?
It's awesome.
Here's something that you'll appreciate as a gamer. There's a comment from Kai Down in the chat. He says there's some really useful Metronome games available too. He says you'll hear 4 clicks and you have to keep it going for 30 seconds, so it kind of tells you how close you were. So I can respect that for sure. And here on the same game thing, Junior was showing me something. He had me get him this game the other day for the shooting games, like the Fortnites and the combat games, stuff like that. It's a training, what is it called? Aim trainer or something like that. So remember the days when we were kids, you ever play hockey where you're taking some shots at the targets in the net? Well, it's like that for video games, and it's just training you to get good with your hand and your mouse. So that's kind of cool.
Minesweeper was also for that.
Okay. Yep.
Microsoft Minesweeper. That's so you could get, how the squares were massive, but then you could make them a lot smaller.
That's right.
It was to train you with the mouse. Yeah.
So it makes total sense.
So that's actually that's a good idea. Actually, in fact, another exercise that's really good is if you're in a band, you should play in a room together.
Yeah.
And play once through a riff.
Okay.
And then do the same length of riff without playing it, and then all come back in at the same point.
Nice.
To see if all of your metronomes line up and you're all counting it the same.
There you go.
We used to do that in my old band in the early 2000s. Yeah.
Great tip. Great tip. Let me see here. JJ's House of Jams is saying too, take the gain way back in amps and pedals and Helix for sure too. And that's the thing too, because you have gain to the end of the days, in Helix, it doesn't mean we necessarily should, right? And I've been guilty for that as well too.
Oh, we all, dude, even me.
Yep.
Actually, I was really surprised when I looked at John Petrucci's amp settings when he's playing through the JP2C and he's got the gain on full in shred mode.
Yeah.
With the pull gain. And it's sounds like my worst nightmare. No noise gate.
Isn't that absolutely crazy?
Yeah, it's nuts.
Ben Caffrey's asking, when you mentioned earlier about the 5150 and the Stealth, he says when John referred to the gain levels of the EVH amps, were you on the blue or red channels that you're using for rhythm?
Both. I've tried them with both, yeah, okay. And the gain was exactly the same, as low as physically possible.
Okay, that's good to know. Here's a question down towards the very end of the chat here. We'll be wrapping up here shortly. It's amazing how fast an hour goes by. We'll still go a little bit. Richard,
all good?
Oh, we're doing great, man. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Richard Henry says, does John think Monuments will come back and play Belfast? Was gutted that it was canceled.
Yeah, we're still probably quite angry about that, actually. So we got over to Belfast and then got told the gig was cancelled.
You actually got there?
Yeah, well, we had a gig in Dublin as well.
Okay.
So, yeah, the promoter cancelled because not enough ticket sales, which was very upsetting.
Oh.
Especially on the day to cancel it.
That is not good. That's not good.
Yeah. But hopefully we'll be back, because obviously we've never played in Belfast. We've only ever played in Dublin, I think.
Well, that'd be good.
And it's been cancelled twice now in Belfast.
That's not exactly the best track record, is it?
No, it's not. No, it's really bad, actually. Well, the first time was cancelled because of a hurricane.
Yeah, well, okay, that's understandable.
And then the second time was because of an idiot.
Oh, okay. There you go. Oh, man. Riley Acura, I always pronounce his name wrong, says, what is your opinion on the Evertune? Do you ever use that bridge? No? Okay. All right.
In fact, actually, I can imagine it would sound good in something like a Les Paul.
Yeah.
Because it takes away so much wood, and I've heard it in a few guitars, and the guitar is just dead. It's kind of I have the same feeling about Floyd Rose sometimes.
Okay.
As well, that because it just takes out so much wood. It totally depends on the wood that's used and the guitar. So yeah, I think in like a Jazz Master with humbuckers, like the Jim Root one. Or a Les Paul or something with a lot of wood, where if it misses a block of that size, you're not really going to care. I think it could sound pretty good in one of those, but to me, no.
Okay, no problem. No, it's good to know for sure. Let's talk a little bit about, as we wrap up here in the next couple of minutes, let's talk about how I feel the guys, the staff at Line 6 are like family. I mean, absolutely, like you see the people in the groups, like Frank especially, but all the whole team, like the support that they have for the consumers. What's it been like working with them? And how long have you been with them now? Since about 2012, did you say? Was that about right?
2014, I would say, was when but I've been in touch with Frank since about 2015. And he's been nothing but great to me. Like, he is a fantastic dude. Same with Matthew, who's not in the group as much. Mm-hmm. He's been very good as well. They're kind of my two main contacts.
Nice.
Line 6. But Frank's like family. That's amazing, isn't he?
I find the same thing as well, too. And I've heard from so many artists where, they might be on tour overseas somewhere, like a North American artist, and something happens and they get to the next town and there's a guitar waiting for them, to replace something that might have been wrong in somewhere. It's just absolutely amazing, that level of customer service.
It's the fact that Frank cares as well.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? It's like when it comes to being an artist, you can like a product as much as you want, but it's all about the relationship you have with the artist relations and the people behind the product. And once it feels like a family and you guys get on really, really well, then it's just a different thing, totally. And Frank's absolutely amazing, as you guys have seen on the group.
It's incredible. It's almost like I make jokes about this, but it's almost like you're waiting for Ashton Kutcher to come out and punk you, because you shouldn't be getting that kind of level of, like everyone tries the best to give you good customer service. But I guess we get spoiled sometimes, and it kind of raises the bar for other manufacturers as well.
Exactly. And you were asking me earlier how I had the time to do all these videos.
Yeah.
How does Frank have the time to reply to everyone on the group.
I get emails from him at we'll be talking about something at 5 o'clock in the morning or his time, or maybe some 6 o'clock in the morning my time, which is 3 o'clock in the morning his time. I'm like, when do you sleep?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think he's up at like 5 a.m. going to the gym or going for a run or something.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. We're totally blessed for sure. So we're on the cusp of New Year's Eve tomorrow night. What, you got any plans? Are you doing anything for New Year's Eve and ready to take on the new year?
Actually, I don't think we have any plans. We might go to my girlfriend's dad's house. It's in a very nice part of the country.
Okay.
And it's a good way to, being with family is never a bad thing, is it?
That's right. Nice.
I don't really enjoy drinking anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've drank too much whiskey in my years.
Well, there's nothing wrong.
Beer,
nothing wrong with having here in Canada. We call it pop or soda in the United States, wherever. I'm not sure what you call it over there, but nothing wrong with having a little bit of that and just spending some time and watching the ball drop and things like that. So
exactly, and sometimes it's really fun to watch people being drunk and you're not.
Yeah, I know.
Like, you're going to feel terrible tomorrow.
You're like, I was that guy one time, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, me too. And what are you doing tomorrow? Well, yes, tomorrow, isn't it?
Same thing. Just hanging with family here. That's one of the things since I've retired from music and things like that. We don't go out anymore. We just stay here. So it'd be just hanging at home. But you know what's so funny? We've canceled television. We don't have television anymore. We use it. We stream everything. And for the most part, you can't even find the ball drop anymore. Like so you can't even really watch that. It's so
exactly
funny.
Yeah. We don't have TV either. Like you actually have to buy a TV license in the UK, but you can opt to not have it.
Okay.
Which is great because we watch like series and stuff on TV, but we don't watch TV.
Yeah.
Like the news just terrifies me. So not paying for that is a good thing.
I know. That's true. We get enough of it thrown down our throats as it is.
Exactly. I still hear about Trump everywhere,
I know.
Brexit.
Yeah, I know. It's funny about the not being able to stream the ball drop, though. This is a kind of a funny story. When we first moved to the streaming technology, Junior, he's 12 now, so I'm going to just say somewhere around 8 or 9, we'll say, right? And we wanted to watch the ball drop, and I'm like frantically trying to find like a source that would stream the ball drop, and all I could find was something from like 1990, and I'm like, people had different fashion, they had different clothes, different hairstyles, and it's like 3, 2, 1, happy 1993, and it's like 1997. He's like, Dad, that doesn't look right, that can't be alive. I'm like, yeah, it's live, it's all good, cheers, happy new year, whatever, right? So I kind of failed as a dad on that one. So hopefully we find something that's at least 2018 tomorrow night.
You could just get your own fireworks.
That's true. Yep, there you go. Pow. Yeah, and be over and Happy New Year.
If you're in America, you could just fire some guns into the air.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. they tend to do that.
Is guns legal in Canada? I always forget.
We have them, but it's not like an open carry, I don't think, like the United States have, and it's a little bit less of a problem here. I'm not trying to point fingers at the United States at all, but it's less of a problem with guns here in Canada than it is in the United States. But you can collect them, you can have them, you have to get licenses and things like that. But I'm probably not the best expert to ask, but they're legal here anyways. Yeah.
That's all right. Okay.
Yeah. Cool. But yeah, we'll be hanging home, and we hope everyone has a fantastic New Year as well too. It's gonna be nice to bring in 2019, and I know you're with the Australian tour heading over around the 27th, 28th, whatever. Does that mean you won't be able to make NAMM this year? Do you do NAMM often?
No NAMM.
No.
I've unfortunately not been to NAMM since 2015 because we've been busy doing things. So I miss it again this year because obviously we're in Australia, and my birthday usually falls on NAMM weekend.
Okay.
As well. But hopefully next year. I keep saying next year for the last 3 years, but then we get booked or I've got to go film something for Riff Hard or something happens, so I've not been able to make it, unfortunately.
Well, gigs come first, man. That's a good thing. Some people don't have that luxury of being busy all the time.
Exactly. So I'm definitely not complaining. We're going to be in New Zealand, we're going to be in Australia, but it would also be cool to represent the companies like Line 6 and stuff like that, Well, because the last few years there's been a big picture of me on the Line 6 tour.
Yeah.
Obviously thanking Frank and Matt for that.
That's cool. I like that. I love that.
Yeah.
Some people just commenting about the gun law. So my own Nocturnal Butterfly, she says we have to lock them up. So that's right. She's right on that. Quentin James, he says I'm in Kentucky. We're born with a firearm.
Yeah. See, in the UK, firearms were banned. Well, automatic weapons were banned a lot earlier than handguns, but handguns were banned in the early 90s after an incident called Dunblane in Scotland, and it was when a guy went into a school and killed a bunch of kids.
Oh,
and then they banned handguns. I think it was around 1994 or 1995. So I would have been 8 or 9 years old. So I was very young.
So it's really
so
changed.
I don't remember.
Yeah, yeah, you wouldn't even know a different world at that point then.
No.
Yeah. Well, listen, happy early birthday to you as well, too. I'm sure we'll probably speak, but in case I don't get a chance, so happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. You don't have to
Sorry
worry.
I was late coming to the show, Eric, and I'm sorry if I stressed you out.
No. Hey, that's nothing. Today has actually gone really, really well. There's been some days, too, where there's always technical things. As a live streamer, it can go wrong. And I was plagued there for a little while. It was like I literally had to cancel a guest. I run another show, too, Walking Dead related, and I had to cancel a guest 30 minutes before airtime. I've never had to do that in 3 years, and it was a really hard pill for me to swallow to have to do that. But today's gone great. It's probably because it's the end of 2018. We're saving the last of the internet juice for tomorrow, whatever. So yeah. It's been a real pleasure to have you.
Do you have a show on The Walking Dead as well?
I do. Yeah, I have 4 shows, which is crazy.
I only recently watched that show.
It's good. It's a good show. It's not for everybody, but I'm addicted to it.
I like the first 3 seasons, maybe 4.
Yep.
And I haven't watched the latest season yet. I need to watch it. I think we've watched all of it up until the latest seasons. So.
The first few were my favorite because I'm kind of biased that way too. Because one of my friends was the showrunner of the show. Okay. Yeah, so I really focus on that. But I've had a couple of guests on from season 3, the prison scene, stuff like that. And I've got an actor from 6 through 9. He's coming on the show probably next week as well too. So it's a fun thing. It's with the channel here. We try to give a little bit of everything. There's Van Halen. There's Helix. There's Walking Dead. There's Kramer guitars, which I'm part of. So it's nice to bring...
really?
Yeah,
Kramer.
yeah. It just
Holy
so many
shit.
people. Like let's say a lady comes in to watch Walking Dead, and we've got some actually in the chat here today, and maybe her husband plays guitar. Oh, cool! So there's 2 things for me to watch here. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, awesome. And in fact, actually, the one guy, what's his name again? Daryl.
Norman Reedus.
That's the one. Reedus. Yeah. He looks like a metalhead.
Well, yeah, he's best friends with guys in Slayer and Exodus and all those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, he's definitely metalhead. I would assume because it goes to their concerts all the time. So.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, it's all related. Yeah, it's all related, man. Well, listen.
He probably plays guitar too.
I don't know if he does. That's one thing I don't know, and I'm kind of embarrassed to not know. I know he's a photographer, which I'm into as well too, but I don't know. But listen, this has been an absolute pleasure. We've gone a little over the clock today, and I thought, you know what? Even though we try to keep the shows pretty tight to 60 minutes, it's the last show of the year. Why not take the rules off the table and have some fun? And I'm really, really happy to have you here, and I'm wishing you the greatest success. And I hope you have a great night tomorrow night with the family. And I hope 2019 is a monumental. See what I did there?
See what you did there.
Yeah, I tried. I failed miserably, but I hope you guys have a great year with the band and great success.
Thank you very much, Harry, and thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, an absolute.
I hope it was informative.
It was. Fans loved it for sure. I know that for a fact. I'm going to say goodbye to you off the air, so don't go anywhere. And everyone, have a fantastic New Year. Be safe out there, wherever you're being. If you're going to be out and traveling, be safe. And we'll look forward to seeing you just on the other side. Just next week, we'll be back and starting a new year, new season, all that good stuff. And check out line6.com and all the great. And there's a million links in the description down below. Don't forget those. Everything that John does, including the Guitar Academy and things like that, all down below. Visit and show some love. And we will see you all very, very soon. And until next time, cheers.
Hey, you're still here? Eric Jr. here, reminding you to check out our full lineup of quality merch. Available right now in the Broadstash Boutique. Quality products and fast shipping. Visit broadstash.com today.
Thank you for watching the Helix Hour. We hope you enjoyed today's presentation. An extra special thank you to the staff at Line 6 for their continued support. If you've not yet subscribed, please do so right now and feel free to share our content with your friends. See you next time on the Helix Hour.